Kanye West's early career is already one of the most documented rises in modern hip-hop, but the legend around his 2002 car crash is truly what helped cement the mythology. The crash, which Kanye turned into the foundation for his breakout single Through the Wire, became part of his origin story and one of the most repeated narratives in hip-hop history. Fans heard the song and immediately connected with the rawness of an artist, literally rapping with his jaw wired shut, struggling through pain to chase his dream. It was the perfect combination of vulnerability, ambition, and cinematic timing, making Kanye feel larger than life from jump. For those who weren't around in that era, the crash wasn't just a footnote. It was the moment that producer Kanye evolved into artist Kanye. Before that, he was known mainly as a beatmaker, helping reshape Rockefeller's sound, but he wasn't seen as someone who could carry his own album. The accident gave his music a sense of emotional urgency, as if the universe literally collided with him to force the world to pay attention. It added weight to every bar, every frustration, and every dream he put into the college dropout. The single Through the Wire became the anchor of his debut for a reason. The story behind it was irresistible. It was the type of underdog narrative that hip-hop gravitates towards, a young artist overcoming the odds and doubt to become great. Kanye played into that energy too, showing photos from the hospital and describing the crash in interviews. The entire rollout leaned into the theme of survival, giving fans something to root for as his career took off. Then came the conspiracy theories, and yes, people really built a whole narrative claiming Kanye faked or exaggerated the severity of the crash. The theory mostly floats around in online forums, old blogs, and certain corners of hip-hop discussion spaces. Some conspiracy believers argue that the details Kanye shared were too vague or too perfectly symbolic to be real. Others claimed his face and jaw didn't appear injured enough in early photos to match the dramatic version of the events he described. One angle of the conspiracy suggests that the crash was orchestrated as a marketing stunt, something engineered to give Kanye an emotional foundation for his transition from producer to rapper. The idea here is that Rockefeller needed a story big enough to sell the industry on Kanye as a solo act. To these theorists, the timing of the accident, right as Kanye was trying to prove he could rap, seems too convenient to be natural. They believe the story was exaggerated to create a hero's journey. Another version of the theory claims that while the crash may have occurred, Kanye embellished the severity of the injuries to enhance the narrative. Fans point to certain photos where Kanye doesn't appear as swollen or bandaged as they think someone with a wired shut jaw should look. They also analyze the vocal clarity on certain parts of the song, ignoring the fact that audio engineering exists. These theories often rely on surface-level evidence and assumptions rather than medical knowledge or first-hand accounts. Some people even go further and claim that the entire thing was fabricated and that no crash took place at all. This angle is more extreme and usually comes from people who believe the music industry regularly manufactures personal tragedies for marketability. The lack of publicly available police reports or official documentation fuels their speculation, even though there's no obligation for such documents to be easily accessible online. This is where the conspiracy stops being casual and starts drifting into the industry boogeyman territory. But here's the reality. Plenty of people close to Kanye, including friends and collaborators, have talked about the crash long before it became a meme or controversy. These aren't the type of claims that suddenly appeared years later. They've been consistent from the very beginning. Medical staff, producers, and witnesses all confirm that the accident really happened. There was no incentive for so many people to fabricate a detailed story that could easily be disproven. There's also the fact that Kanye's early defiance of the industry didn't exactly benefit from stage sympathy. Rockefeller famously did not want to push him as a rapper, which means manufacturing a traumatic event for publicity would have required the label to care in ways they simply didn't at that time. Kanye's rise was fueled more by his own hunger and self-funding than label support. A fabricated crash wouldn't have magically changed Jay-Z or Dame Dash's initial doubts. Another point to consider is how unnecessary a fake accident would have been for someone with Kanye's work ethic and talent. By that point, he had already produced hits that had the charisma to break through naturally. His creative drive alone was enough to build momentum, especially once he started recording tracks like Jesus Walks, Slow Jams, and All Falls Down. There was no need for fictional tragedy when his skill set was already undeniable. Still, conspiracy theories thrive in hip-hop because the culture has a long history of mistrusting corporate narratives. Fans are used to spotting inconsistencies, questioning agendas, and analyzing symbolism. In this environment, even real events can get twisted into conspiracies, even if they seem too perfect for storytelling. Kanye's crash fits neatly into that box, a dramatic, emotional event that shaped an entire career. It also doesn't help that Kanye himself is a myth maker by nature. He leans into symbolism, exaggeration, and performance art in almost everything he does. Fans sometimes struggle to separate the artist from the narrative, especially with someone whose career is built on grand storytelling. When a figure constantly blends reality for artistic effect, people start to suspect everything. The conspiracy also persists because it reflects a deeper tension in how people view Kanye's legacy. Some believe he's a creative genius capable of orchestrating anything, even a life-altering event for artistic purposes. Others see him as someone who constantly challenges traditional rules and expectations. In both views, Kanye becomes a character in a story, not just a person who survived a traumatic crash. At its core, the theory is less about truth and more about how people process legends in hip-hop. When an artist reaches a certain level of cultural impact, their real life starts turning into folklore. Every detail becomes a potential myth. Every story becomes a chapter in a larger saga. Kanye crossed that threshold way early in his career. From a practical standpoint, there's enough evidence to comfortably say that the accident happened as described. The hospital photos, the testimony of close friends, and the consistent timeline all point to a real event. And even if you listen closely to Through the Wire, the strain in Kanye's voice is not something easily faked. There's a rawness that mirrors the hunger and discomfort of someone pushing through the pain, not just studio tricks. On the other hand, the fact that the theory exists at all says something interesting about Kanye's place in pop culture. He's one of the few artists whose life is so dramatic, so cinematic that people assume everything he does has layers. It's almost expected that anything involved with him will come with a conspiracy attached. That alone speaks to his influence. Whether you believe the conspiracy or not, one thing is clear: the crash and its impact on Kanye's career is undeniable. It shaped the narrative of the college dropout, influenced how fans connected with him, and added emotional weight to his early music. The story helped elevate him from a talented producer to a fully formed star, and even skeptics admit that the myth became part of the magic. And that's why the conspiracy has such a long shelf life. It sits right at the intersection of truth, performance, and symbolism. It's a story that feels almost too perfect, too cinematic to be real, even though all the signs point to it being authentic. It's rare that an artist's origin story hits with that much force. Kanye's did. In the end, the truth is probably the simplest explanation. A young artist got into a serious accident and turned his pain into art, used that moment to propel himself forward. The conspiracy is more of a reflection of how people process Kanye's larger-than-life presence than a reflection of actual evidence. When someone's legacy is built on spectacle, people expect spectacle in every corner of their life story. That's how legends work. So while the idea of Kanye faking the crash makes for a fascinating conversation, the real story is still powerful enough without any embellishment. Through the Wire stands as one of hip-hop's great moments of vulnerability and resilience, and whether the conspiracy theorists believe it or not, the song changed the trajectory of his career forever. Sometimes, the truth really is dramatic enough.